Area of triangles. Area equals half of the base times the height. In just a bit, we are going to use the formula for finding the area of a triangle in order to solve this example. But first, let's take it back to talking about rectangles and why rectangles and triangles are related. Geometric lines work very well together to create other geometric figures. In this case, the triangle has 3 sides compared to the rectangle, which is a quadrilateral with 4 sides. But what were to happen if I would take this half of the triangle and flip it over? Can you guess? Now, I do not mean to fold the triangle in half to create a smaller triangle. I mean if I were to cut off half of the triangle and invert it over the top of the other. If you guessed that it would create a rectangle, you are correct. When you invert the triangle and put them together point to point, you now have formed a rectangle. This is important because this is going to help you tremendously to remember the formula for a triangle. If you remember that a triangle is truly half of a rectangle, then you can remember that the formula for a rectangle was length times width or base times height. And because a triangle is half of a rectangle, the formula for finding the area of a triangle is 1/2 the base times the height. Now we are back to our original triangle, and notice that the height is in the middle of the base, going up towards the highest point of the triangle. And because it makes a 90-degree angle, and we have the square to indicate that, you can also think of it as a small h, which will always tell you what the height is. Now, they may give you the height of the triangle outside of the triangle in some cases. I will try to find an example of one. But in this case, it is evident that the height is the number in the middle, 4.9. And in this case, we're looking at meters. So if the point from the base to the highest point is the height, then that means that the 23.7 meters is our base. This means that this side of the triangle is what lies flat. It is not always necessarily the longest of the lines of the triangles. It just happens to be in this one. Typically, they will give you the 2 measurements, or you will take them yourself using a ruler. Now that you know how to find the base and the height, we are going to substitute our values into the formula. So the formula was area equals 1/2 of the base times the height, and in this case the height is 4.9 and the base is 23 7/10 of a meter. So let's use our order of operation. We will first work out what is in the parentheses by using our first step to our PEMDAS, which is parentheses. And then we will end up dividing our answer by 2. Remember that 1/2 of something is truly just dividing it by 2. Whenever you break something in half, you now have 2 pieces. So first step is to multiply the base times the height, and then we will follow that by dividing by 2. After multiplying 4.9 times 23.7, or 4 9/10 times 23 7/10, I got 116 13/100. So I took the 1/2, notice I've circled it, and now I've just put it under my answer as a fraction, dividing by 2. Once I divided 116 and 1300ths by 2, I received an answer of 58 and 65 thousandths. So the area of this particular triangle is 58 and 65 thousandths. Let's review the steps. The first step you will do as you work out the questions about finding the area of triangles is to write down the original formula. A equals 1/2 B times H, or area equals 1/2 the base times the height. Next, if your dimensions are only given to you and no triangle has been drawn or given to you, then draw your own triangle and correctly label the base and the height. If the triangle is given to you along with the measurements, take note of the measurements that are being used. Like in our example, we use meters, sometimes it's centimeters or inches, and locate the base and the height. For your operations, first multiply the base times the height. You want to make sure that you multiply first the base times the height. Do not confuse this with trapezoids, where you need to find half of the height. This is not the case. You need to multiply the base times the height first, please. The second step is to take the product of the base and the height, your product is your answer, and divide that number by 2. So again, you're going to find the base and the height, multiply those two numbers together, and divide that answer or product by 2. That's it. You have 2 simple steps. Other than making sure you have the correct information for your base and your height, but it's just 2 steps. Multiply base times height and divide by 2.